for them and hand over to Neamh.
Thank you very much, Peter. And inspired as I am by particularly Dorothea's wonderful talk yesterday and by the cultural events last night, I felt that I'd try and give a particular turn to this talk. So I'll just go down and get my repository if you just hold on a minute. Friends, Romans, or Athenians of the North, I believe that you're known as. Repository men and women. I've come to bury the repository, not to praise it, to help Dorothea with what she did yesterday. The evil repositories do, obviously, clearly lives after them. The good, you can see, it's interred with their bones. So let it be with the repository. The noble Dorothea has told us that the repository is ambitious, that it tried to do so many different things and that it's failed. If it was so, it was a grievous crime. So I'm not going to talk about the repository. I'm going to talk about a current research information system, nothing to do with the repository at all, and talk about an institution, oh yeah, and there's this Lisbon thing, not the one that Ireland has recently become famous for, I do have to say. The Lisbon strategy, where Europe aims to become the most competitive and dynamic knowledge-based economy in the world. I wonder where the other competitor is, and that means that Europe are prepared under FP7, as you know, to put enormous amounts of funding into research infrastructures. Billions of euro are being put into research. In my country, exactly the same. We have a strategic plan for science, technology and innovation, where our government are putting €9 billion in the next couple of years into science and technology research. So within my own institution, we have an information strategy. Coherent information policy for the university is required to address the needs right across the board of the library, e-learning and so on. And this was actually back in 2005 that this strategy came up. And in the middle of that was a research database, not a repository, a research database to be part of an integrated management system to help monitor our progress in research and scholarship and to help manage their support. And so we built Trinity's research support system, just an Oracle-based system, homemade because nothing else out there would integrate in the way we needed things to be integrated. We have an information guiding principles in the university, which was actually taught, conceived by Professor Jane Grimson, a name you will possibly be familiar with because she was the chair of the EURAB working group that made those wonderful recommendations, the recommended mandate to the European Commission. She's a professor of computer science and she was our vice provost at the time, and she's a wonderful advocate as a researcher of open access. She said the information guiding principles require us to integrate all of our systems, and they prohibit us, and this is aspirational, from duplicating information if we possibly can anywhere in the university. So as well as that, obviously we have all of this going on, bibliometric analysis, comparisons, because the government and Europe and our policymakers and decision makers want to see what we're doing with the money that they're giving us. So we can show very good results in this area in Ireland, particularly in relation to the increased research funding that we've got. And of course, we have to mention this. You know what we're looking at here? It's the dreaded Times Higher Education Supplement rankings, with 20% of the marks associated with citations per faculty. So these are all parts, I suppose, of some of the driving forces behind our research systems. Although we wouldn't really like to say that something like the Times is influencing us, I think everybody knows that this kind of thing does have an effect. So our research information system, the researchers actually told us they wanted it to be set up like this. They wanted a CV-driven profile system that was going to help them manage their publications first, And then we'd have a look at the projects and so on. So CV Driven is fully integrated with the complementary systems in the university. Initial population is from the staff records and so on. It can be enhanced live by the researcher, but we also do mediated input as well. And we've devolved a lot of that task to the school administrators. They take this on, and you'll see why they want to take this sort of thing on later on. So every individual has a research profile. If you click on somebody's name on the directory, you see the research profile comes up. They get a personal URL that they can put on their business cards. Just the bursar was telling me the other day she wanted a new picture because she was sending this out, and it's always good to have the bursar, you know, sort of interested in this kind of thing. So there's a live feed onto the school web pages. So you see, they give us the information once. We tell them, you will not be asked for this information again in this university. And we hope that that's true. The data is also fed out to expertiseireland.com, which is a federation of research information systems, CRIS if you want to call them. And every university in Ireland, north and south, so Queen's University Belfast and the University of Ulster, also do these nightly extracts of research information right out to Expertise Ireland. This all pre-exists, and this was all there before the repositories came onto the scene at all. Within our research support system, we can generate CVs. The researchers ask for this also. So they can customize their CV if they want to. We can run all kinds of reports out of it, annual review, school research reports. So the school administrators really like this, and the school directors of research, because they have something on their desktop. The next time somebody's looking for a report in the last, sort of by, 5 o'clock today on how the school is doing, they're able to run a report live. So the data is live just as people update it. So that's a report that somebody can literally choose who they want to have on it and run it for engineering in this case. And choose, do they want it output in PDFs or RTFs or whatever, comma delimited files. Also reporting for evaluation, so we can run reports on outputs, and they put out figures. So we can see numbers of book chapters, numbers of journal articles, and so on. And also, what's that? My God, this is the kind of thing that you see in universities. It's known as the matrix. It is our research matrix. That's our research strategy. You've all got one, right? Most people don't know what it is because it's all this sort of high-level themes, the whole thematic area, the whole interdisciplinary thing. So we're trying to model that in the research support system, which is really fun, trying to get people to align themselves to these kind of broad themes so that we can push them out onto our research pages and for the very first time be able to get a view of who in the university is involved with globalization across health sciences, computer science, social work and social policy, or whatever area that they want. So the data is being put on, and there's a public search of the research support system as well. So we're feeding the data live, people, projects and publications live onto these pages by theme. And there's a repository. Where did that come from? We decided that there's just one thing missing. We should have some full text, and we should do the open access thing. This is about supporting our researchers after all, so we should allow them to make it easy for them to put their research into a repository too. The researchers never really see the repository though, it's in there, but as you see, it's dead, isn't it, But how we deal with it is we've integrated with the research support system, adding value to records in both of the systems. So we bring in research publications, but also electronic theses, e-publishing in grey literature, and we're looking at images as well because there's a demand for it. We bring in bibliographic records from Thomson by agreement with them. We've been doing that since 2002. We bought 25,000 records on an institutional citation report from them. And now we've got funding, thanks to the Higher Education Authority in Ireland, our funders. They paid for a national research data project so that we can buy the data for the whole country, clean it up and pull it into our local systems, exactly what they're doing in Norway, in Sweden, in Belgium, and all over the rest of Europe. So we're also looking at using APIs for Scopus, Web of Science and PubMed. We can bring in the information using EndNote as well. And this is how the data gets in. However you get it into the research support system, that's where it all starts. Somebody clicks on the publication, add a new publication. Whatever way they get the data in, they put it in. The data is then, they're given a second screen and they can see upload full text to the repository. That's what they get. There's nothing there, there's no information, there's no barriers. So the metadata is passed over into the research, into the repository. The researcher has to just browse, upload the version of the paper that they want. The researcher's profile link is passed over to the repository record. So we're not just sending out the information, the metadata about this particular journal article, we're sending out the data about the whole researcher, that person and his or her body of work and all the projects. So plus, by demand, we put in the link to the live ISI citation record. The persistent identifier is fed back to the research support system, and that goes wherever, all those places that the research support system goes, out to Expertise Ireland, the link goes out there. That's just one of them. And also, oh yeah, there's the repository again, because it's doing its stuff out there in the web, you know? So we have the bit we're organising, sending out, actively pushing out the data, and we have the repository doing its stuff in Google and in Google Scholar. And Google Analytics is showing us all the hits coming in from all the parts of the world that we really wanted to go to. So there's our research support system in the middle, feeding out to Expertise Ireland and feeding out to locally to our People Finder directory and the college systems. And there's the repository, poor dead repository. It's just sitting there getting information passively from the research support system. Okay, it's sending its persistent identifiers back to the research support system, and those identifiers are going out onto the web. And obviously, we've got e-publishing and so on going on in there too. So you see, where's the repository? Oh yeah, it's over there. Look, far over there. The research support system is there in the middle. And there's all the usual things we're feeding across using our web services. Here's all the existing and potential sources of data that are feeding into the research support system, and that's where it comes out. So you can kind of see where the repository is, and it's kind of just part of an overall research information system. We'll have a look at the electronic thesis very quickly. Inclusion in the repository, of course, as you know, means that you get enhanced access to one of the single most underutilised research outputs that there is. When you integrate everything, don't worry about looking at any of this. This is just a basic workflow. I have to say, for our repository, we're using a really old version of DSpace for doing this. Actually, it doesn't much matter what kind of repository you have and what, well, you know, when I come on looked at the mandates, Sword would be really handy at this stage, so we're going to have to upgrade, you know. But it's kind of doing an awful lot of work for something that costs practically nothing, you know. You know, it does all of this system, so we're automating the whole thesis submission system, speeding up the whole process. The students think this is wonderful. The Graduate Students' Union are behind us on this, so we're going to try and roll it out. We've just piloted it in a couple of areas. We're going to try and roll it out. Integration means that when the student goes to add an electronic thesis, they actually do it in the research support system, because that's the thing that integrates with everything and pulls in all the data from about 6 different systems, student records, from the Graduate Studies Office and so on. So when the student clicks on the list, on the button, the student sees a metadata record that's all filled out. All the fields are standardized, everything. Their name is put in for them. Their supervisor's name, the name of the school, the type of the degree, it's all there. So there's no room for any errors or anything like that there. All the student has to do is upload the right version of the thesis, we hope, but then that's going to be checked, you'll be verified in the system anyway. That becomes the master version of the thesis. Someday, maybe, there won't be a printed version. At the moment, the Students' Union asked us to print, to have a button to FTP the thesis to the print centre so that the students can print out the thesis there and then. And we can authenticate, we know that that's the same thesis that is in the repository and that's in the library, the printed version, something that we actually never knew before. We have no idea at the moment whether we've got the right version of the thesis in the library. It also allows us, I suppose the repository allows us to participate in things like DART Europe, Digital Access to Research Theses Europe. There's at least 20 different countries and consortia involved in that. Deutsche Bibliothek has about 40,000 doctoral theses that are being harvested in there. So that's joining forces with Driver that I'll talk about. So we've got our Higher Education Authority have also funded a National Federation of Repositories. So we've got the Research Information Systems and the repositories federating, and they're going to join up at a national research platform. This is called IRL Open. It's under the National Development Plan, and it's managed by the Irish Universities Association, which is like Universities UK. So it's going to be hosted by Expertise Ireland. That's the Research Information System people. So these things are, from the beginning, they're wedded. Single point of access to national research output. So it's a showcase. We know it's out there already on the web and everything like that, but we want to bring it all together. Author ID, Basically, the Dutch have done it. You know, they've been very generous, just as Sherpa in the UK are so generous about sharing their information in this area. We have mandates coming in now with the funding councils following the other kind of mandates. ERCSET, the Irish Research Council for Science, Engineering and Technology, has probably the best mandate in the world. It's, I'm just quoting Peter Suber and Stefan Harned, because it's looking for immediate deposit and then release on within 6 months or whatever, as soon as the publisher will allow. And it favours institutional repositories. Why? Obviously, we want to manage our information within our institution. We think that we're the best people to do it. It's part of our job to do that. So how we're going to manage that is we're working with the research office, because I suppose I should say I don't work for the library. My address is in the library. I work for the Dean of Research. He pays for all of this. The research committee pay for it. It's not a library system. It's a college system. So the library is involved in advising on the publication side and in doing advocacy, because we're quite good at selling systems, really, through user education. So the research office is very strongly involved with this. They're advising us at the point of the signing contracts for Wellcome Trust and for NIHS, etc. They're developing a form, a separate form, because nobody reads the fine print when they get their proposal, so that the researchers are able to know immediately that they're signing up to deposit. Thanks, Peter. So we're working on this workflow at the moment. Sherpa, of course, basically are an enormous help to us, and it has to be said, we wouldn't be able to deal with it. Dorothy is absolutely right. There is so much work to be done that we couldn't possibly deal with this without the kind of help that we get at the moment. And we're partnering with Driver as well, who's providing the kind of support that we want. SWORD, again, this is exactly the sort of thing that we need to be able to streamline our systems. And I hope that, I'd like to publicly congratulate Julie and the rest of the people involved with SWORD. It's one of the most exciting things to happen in this environment for a couple of years, I think. There's so much to be done, and yet the poor repository is just, sort of sitting there languishing, an abysmal failure, obviously, write-off. What can we say about it? Well, I think I'll just stop talking about it altogether and just remind you of a little group of people. Let's go back to another tragedy. 1847, the famine in Ireland. A group of people came together in Trinity because they believed that gathering information about something and understanding something, collecting statistics and being able to gain an increased understanding of societal issues would actually help to solve them. Idealists, fools possibly. That society still exists. It's probably one of the only four that the Statistical and Social Inquiry Society of Ireland. It is a place where policymakers, senior civil servants and researchers from the universities sit down together. They debate the big issues of the day, just as they've done since 1847 onwards. And there's a whole record of this in their journal. This society have always adopted the latest technology, the latest media. They used magic lantern slides when they were giving their lectures, and unfortunately they haven't lasted. We're trying to track some of them down. New technology for them was actually getting the original transactions and putting them into a journal. And they thought this was a very radical step to take. They were doing anything to get their information out there. They were the researchers who were involved in it. And I think that's really, we're just doing the same thing now. They digitized the entire journal. The Learned Society paid for it, and I was privileged to be able to deal with this extraordinary information, which has some of the finest thinkers in our country. You can writing in it, and you can map the whole economic development of the country from that time over the two jurisdictions since the Union and then onwards. Some of the greatest writers, originally Sir William Wilde was part of Oscar's father was one of the people who set this up. Isaac Butt and some of the members of the government. The entire journal is there, and the journal has asked us to publish it electronically as an open access journal now. They're still to the forefront. So that's our first peer-reviewed journal. It's very significant for us, and we're very happy to use the repository to handle this. And it's very necessary. Recently, one of our researchers had to do an interview with the newspaper, and that's Professor Eileen Drew, and she wanted to back up the information that she put in, so she asked me to make sure that her papers were available. in the repository, and she wanted to send the link. That's an entire book that she wrote with Senator Ivana Bacik, who's one of our law professors, a 500-page monograph that's available. The authors just told the publishers that they wanted to make it open access, and that was it. So there is, the researchers are becoming involved in this under certain circumstances. We can tell you plenty of stories about that, and there's one of our records there. Some of these papers just can't be found anywhere else. They're very obscure. There are other things as well afoot. Universitas 21, that group, we're not members of it, but we are involved with talking to them about how they hope to build information systems to support the Millennium Development Goals. What greater cause is there than elimination of world poverty, maternal mortality, etc. The Irish African Partnership for Research Capacity and Development Studies is an all-island development with every university, again, on the island involved with it, and 4 universities, one in Tanzania, Mozambique, Malawi, and Uganda. Repositories are being placed at the heart of this consortium, of the portal that's there. And, within Africa, there is already a thriving, as I'm sure you know, repository environment. This is where it really matters about getting research information out there. Let's forget about the finer points about how nice it looks and so on. Only over 92% of all research comes from what's known as the developed north. There's practically nothing. There's a trickle of information coming out of the developing world, and yet that's where we really need the information from the ground, from the field. And that's why we have the Piyushi Kotecha from South Africa saying that the open access movement is critically important if we're to support development in Africa and indeed in India and other countries. IFL are working with us, and we're very proud to be working with them because of the wonderful work that they're doing, setting up repositories in a sustainable situation with consortia, based on consortia in countries all over the world. But it all comes back to the benefits to the individual researcher. I just want to bring it back to our research information systems. We tell the researcher, you can do all this stuff, promote your research, get your personal URL, and all that kind of thing. And down at the very end you have, upload the full text of publications subject to copyright directly into TCD's open access digital repository, maximise its audience and its impact on the World Wide Web, and comply with funders' mandates and so on. That's the position of the repository. But the repository is dead. My heart is in the laptop there with the repository. I must pause till it come back to me. The repository and the repository managers, all of you people here, I think you know that you're like, should all join me in the wake later on for this. But it's not. Yes, you're on, Dorothea. The wake, the wake, I don't think the repository, it's not exactly dead, is it? Well, maybe it's like Finnegan's Wake. Maybe it's just, unconscious or something like that, No, it's not unconscious either. It's like an American wake. Let's have an American wake. That's what we call it in Ireland, when one of our loved ones decides to embark on the hazardous journey across the seas to the new world. Repository managers who are like Maximus coming in from the northern campaigns to our betogaed senators in the libraries. Take heart. Nil desperandum, or as we say in Carlo, illegitime non carborundum est. Thank you very much.